I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? But Ian, this is a .44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and would blow your head clean off. You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
How's it going, my friends? This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy Podcast. And today we're talking about the one and the only Clint Eastwood. And we got a very special guest. My father, the Wayne Brain Wrong. Hi, Dad. So, one cool thing is, he told me this a couple days ago. He actually just bought all of his stuff from The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the 3 wonderful spaghetti westerns that the man with no name wears throughout all of them. And you found them all on the internet separately and put it all together. And I typically have to spend hours editing my guests' outfits and whatnot, but you sent me many pictures, and I picked one. I got rid of the background, and I put you on there, and that's all I did. So thank you for really committing. I appreciate it.
Oh, okay. I had to go on Amazon, so. The other thing is when I did decide to do all this, and there's the vest and the shirt. You can't see everything, but yeah, I've got the whole wardrobe on. But the worst thing about this whole experience so far is, you asked me to take some selfies so you could put them on, whatever you needed to do with them.
Uh-huh.
So a few in my backyard, and I thought, well, a picket fence, green grass, a couple flower pots sitting there. I thought, well, or if I did it inside the house, I don't think it'd be realistic standing in front of a refrigerator.
The lighting would be bad too. So
yeah, so I run across the street and where the sagebrush is.
You went on a little Indiana Jones hike first.
Ran over there. I had to look around, make sure no one was coming. So I run across the road in my Clint Eastwood outfit, get up behind some trees, and I'm taking a couple more shots, selfies, which is me anyway. And then when I was coming back, one of my neighbors seen me.
Oh.
Behind the tree, so I didn't have to really talk to him. But yeah, it was the ultimate embarrassment for a guy of my caliber.
Well, I appreciate it, and when I think of that, I mean, it really means a lot. So thanks for doing that, Dad. So that's awesome.
And the other thing is too, that I just realized that some of the movies, the early movies of Clint Eastwood, just got the trilogy or whatever, Good, Bad, and Ugly, and $2 More. Well, a lot of the scenes he's out in the desert wearing these clothes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in an air-conditioned house. I'm having heat stroke symptoms. I don't know how he did it. This is a shot with a wool vest underneath over a long sleeve shirt. So I don't know how he pulled that one off. But he must be tougher than me.
Yeah, he doesn't need water like normal human beings do.
No, the only time he almost was in trouble was, The Good, Bad, and Ugly.
Yep.
I had to take care of him to find out, where all the gold coins was all buried. So you had to keep them alive so you could find out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and when you see his lips, they're all chapped and everything, and you see he's so helpless that he can't do anything. It really is the first time you see Clint Eastwood in such a vulnerable state that you're like, oh wow, okay, you might die.
Well, it was just in the last few years that I realized that people need water. Anyway, you go out and have a few beers, and the next day you look and feel like Clint Eastwood, and then you realize like, well, you got to drink some water uh, all the time, and especially before and after drinking.
Mm.
So.
So Clint Eastwood, besides being in a lot of these wonderful westerns, and we'll talk about all those, he also has directed, I believe, 41 or 42 movies at this point in his life. And he's still, like we're about ready to see a new movie come out soon. We'll talk about that. But that is, I mean, he's still directing and acting in these movies. This guy's 91 years old, and I mean, how amazing is that, Dad?
No, and I know in some of the best, if not the best movies he's been in, I think he directed. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that company started Mount Paso,
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
and and that was back. God, that was it 70s, or I mean, it was. I mean, a lot long. I mean, a lot long time ago. Before I knew, I mean, I just thought he was an actor, and I didn't know. Um, for a long time that he even directed until movies like Unforgiven and things like that. But looking back and then seeing his name in the credits, yeah, I didn't know that. So yeah, his best movies though, I think the ones he's in charge of.
Oh, and his first directorial debut was actually Play Misty for Me in 1971, and that movie, even first time directors usually, I mean, their first movies are usually garbage. It's very rare for like a like a Steven Spielberg to make like a Steven Spielberg like movie as their first one. I don't even like George Lucas. All these guys didn't do. They already made a couple other movies that were decent, and then they did their like Jaws. Steven Spielberg had a couple small movies before he did Jaws. That was just his big first one. But yeah, it's very rare to on your first try make something that they've now done movies like Fatal Attraction, movies that copied it.
Yeah, and another thing is too is I don't know if if that's one of his first ones, but he was known from the Western movies, and that was sort of in my the way I remember it, that was one of the first ones where bounty hunter, something like that.
Yeah,
So,
well,
and
same
I
year as Dirty Harry too.
actually seen that in a what's that?
I would say same year as Dirty Harry when that came
Yeah,
out.
and I thought he was equally good on those. I mean, I know we talk a lot about the what is it, character acting, and or you get in a role, and it's hard to get out of that. I always thought he could do it all, but you can't forget he's a tough guy.
Yes.
So when you're watching any movie, um, I mean, I think there's movies he's been in that he tries to come off and not have that role of being a tough guy, but it's like watching a Buster Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger movie and not realizing that you could snap our necks like a twig, so it's hard to get that out of our mind, him being just a tough guy. So, but I think he had some movies that, I mean, most of his roles, I mean, he was a tough guy. I mean, that's all
Mm-hmm.
there is to it. He had a few movies that I think he tried not to be that guy, and I think it worked. But it's definitely not a character. I think he did a good job. But yeah, he's the man, and I mean,
He is the man.
when how you watch movies today, when you find out there's a star in it, like Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise, or I mean, the list is big, but if they're in it, you just think it's going to be good. You almost convince yourself, well, it's a good movie because he was in it.
Even if the story is lacking, you're like, well, it's that person. So yeah.
I suppose that's why they go after the big stars, because people are going to watch it just because they're there, even if the movie's not so good. But I can remember when I was a little kid and I was watching Rawhide, the first TV show, or I mean, the one I think that he was in. That was like in the 59
50,
or 50,
59. Yep. 59.
black and white. Of course, that's the TV we had was black and white, so that's what we were going to watch anyway. But and I wasn't. There was other shows that were more that I liked better. I mean, some of the other TV shows, and so I didn't watch that one a lot until it'd been out and over, and then I went back and watched them. But when they were current, I don't know, maybe I was just too well, I mean, I was really young when those Rawhide movies were going on, so um, we may not even got the channel. I don't know. You know, we had three channels and black and white TV that took an hour to warm up. So I don't know, but I don't remember watching those live. I mean, when they were new. But I can remember later watching them because after I watched Clint Eastwood movies, and then I went back and I thought, oh, well, Clint Eastwood's in Rawhide, and so I watched those too. But me and my generation, growing up and watching a Clint Eastwood movie, you knew exactly who you wanted to be. I mean, like that's the person I want to be. I mean, I want to. I don't know.
Would you say like if you compare John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, what would you want to be more? What kind of person? Like, because typically John Wayne, even though he might be a little hard on the edge, he still typically is a hero. Where a lot of times Clint Eastwood can kind of be like an anti-hero. He's kind of a prick with a purpose.
They played some similar roles, but I think John Wayne, there was something about, he's a tough guy, but I think he showed how, he's a lot more vulnerable. I mean, so you could sort of relate to that. He was tough, but yet you could see I don't know, a little bit more maybe, I don't know, the more human side where Clint Eastwood he's just a tough guy. You didn't mess with him. I don't know. That's tough because it's the same. Of course, John Wayne was out, before Clint Eastwood. And in his movies, I mean, he was another one of my heroes. That I can remember, 30, 40 years ago, almost every parent. I mean, my parents, you go in their house and here's a big portrait of John Wayne. And Western, and he played a lot of same thing. He played a lot of roles, a lot of movies that wasn't, he wasn't a cowboy.
Military movies too.
Yeah, and he was really good. So it's different. It's hard to compare them. They did it, but I don't know. In the end, I think Clint Eastwood. John Wayne, one of the best in my generation, one of the best actors of all time, and once again, our hero. But then along came Clint Eastwood, and I don't know. It's just. But my point about popular people in a movie now, you hear that a popular actor is going to be in a movie, you're more likely to go see it because you think it must be a good movie because he's in it, and they're going to spend the big bucks to get someone like that on that movie, bring in more viewers. The thing about Clint Eastwood movies, when I first seen him in a movie, he was not popular, and I still love the movie. So, granted, those early movies, but you got to remember it was in the 60s, and I mean, I'm not a movie director or producer or nothing like that, but I was the ones watching the movies, and I know he had an opportunity. The way I understand it, he was working. He was in Rawhide as Rowdy, and he just had an opportunity to make a movie in Italy. And I think, you just do what you got to do to get started. And yes, it was Italian language for the most part, and so you can look at the lips and. So if you didn't know anything about Clint Eastwood and you watch those movies now, it might be hard to relate to. They're still my favorite movies of all time. I mean, by far. I mean, and the more I watch them, the better they get. But yeah, I know that back in the 60s, there was a lot of, I mean, they've come a long ways, as you know. And back then, there wasn't any, trick photography or, it's all pretty well real, the stunts and the people and the gunfights and the horse riding. I mean, it was just all someone was holding a camera, and so I think under those situations and back in the 60s, I think they did an excellent job. But the result is the story. I mean, all the stories, anything that Clint Eastwood's ever been involved in, they're great stories. I mean, um, and and the sign of a good actor, and I know we've talked about that in the past, but like Al Pacino and Scarface. I mean, you're still rooting for him, and he's the bad guy, but he's such a good actor. You're still rooting for him.
Because he's the most charismatic person, and it's something that happens when you're looking at those kind of characters, like in Daniel Day-Lewis and There Will Be Blood. You get captivated by these kind of performances, but
Yeah.
I would say it's funny enough, as wonderful, and they are the best. One big reason why those movies are so wonderful is Sergio Leone and Ennio Morricone. Easily the two reasons why that movie was successful. That's the director and the composer.
Um, and that was the other thing is too is growing up on an AM radio, and and they only have 10 songs that you can hear to on the radio over and over again, and all of a sudden a movie like that comes out with that soundtrack. I mean, Good, Bad, and Ugly. Um, and I know we're just talking about one. I think a few dollars more, a fistful of dollars. All those. They all. Another one that he wasn't in, but the same kind of a movie that, well, all movies require that kind of music, and I mean, that's really one of the most important parts of the whole movie, because it sets sets the mood and the emotions and everything. But I can remember in the very end of Good, Bad, and Ugly, when they're standing around in a circle, the three guys, and they're ready to have a shootout, and they're playing that music. I mean, it was just, and I've seen that no less than, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 times.
I watch it on YouTube all the time. Just that scene, it's just so hard.
It's still one of the best scenes, and I think I've actually looked it up before, and it's one of the best endings. I don't know if it's just for that genre, that type of, or if it's all movies, but either way, I still can sit there and watch it, and the way they did the cameras and the eyes and looking at each other, you can almost feel like you were there in the circle.
They're building the intensity the whole time, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to their eyes until it's just right there, and the music's just sitting there, just and the trumpet's really blaring, and you're like, just shoot, and then it goes a little bit longer and a little bit longer, and you're like, oh my god, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, and the way that they build the suspense in a 6-minute just staring at each other before you kill each other kind of thing. It set the stage for future movies to be like, hey guys, that's kind of what the bar is set, so we gotta figure it out now.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, the music is huge. I even actually went out and bought a cassette. And for all you out there that doesn't know what that is, I mean, records, 8-tracks, cassettes, CDs, digital now. But I actually bought the cassette of like Clint Eastwood movies music, and I dragged Maine in my car and listened to that, and that was pretty cool.
Oh, no, absolutely! It's a very intense feeling, and it kind of it moves and Ennio Morricone does that so perfectly. He does the music for a lot of great movies, but funny enough though, that like these three movies are great, but there's also a specific movie that I want to talk about with the same kind of genre, but different kind of pacing, but maybe better storytelling and acting, is Unforgiven.
Oh my gosh! So that's a perfect example of, and that's what we were talking about John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood, he wasn't like when he's a bounty hunter. I mean, he'd take you out, and if anyone messed with him, he'd take you out. I mean, no problem. So he's not a nice guy. He's not, but yet somehow he pulls it off in his acting that he's a caring person. He's a fair man. So you got that combination. I mean, that's why it's easy. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's not.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's not a bad. He's a bad character. Now, not all of them. You get like Outlaw Josie Wells and all that. Here's just a regular guy, and then that happens to him, and he turns mean.
Whose family was taken from him, and then he wanted revenge. Yeah.
he was a bounty hunter and whatever, he's acting like he didn't have any conscience. But through all that, it came out that he was a fair person.
Hmm.
So he wouldn't bother anyone that wasn't bothering him.
Right.
But Unforgiven, I'm telling you, when that come out, and then here's this broken down old guy, and the thing of it is the older I get, the more tuned in to getting older, and of course he's a lot older, but when he came in, he was sort of the underdog, even though he was a cold-blooded killer
Hmm.
in his early days. I mean, according to what he said.
Yeah, he killed women and children, and yeah.
But through all that, you're rooting for him. Once again, he's standing there, and when he starts going down the street riding his horse and saying, "I'll take out, I'll kill all you SOBs," you believe it, and you were on his side. Um, but on the other hand, there was a good versus evil. Even though we're his past, he was sort of a bad guy.
Hmm.
He was dealing with people that really not good people. I mean, Gene Hackman was a bad guy.
Hmm.
Not,
I would say comparably, he maybe is not even as much of a bad guy as Clint Eastwood was, though.
yeah, he ruled the town, and boy, he did some things that were questionable. So my opinion was in that movie he was the bad guy. I know he was the sheriff, and there were some other things too, other times too, like when he's up on his roof and he's just a man trying to better his life and all that. But he messed with Clint Eastwood. And
Right.
the thing about that movie too is Morgan Freeman, and need I say more? I mean, Morgan Freeman. I mean, is uh, I'd like him to be, president of the United States. I mean, Morgan Freeman is so good, and every role is just perfect.
Million Dollar Baby, he was wonderful.
Uh, and when they, in Unforgiven, when they killed him, I mean, you wanted revenge as the audience.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
You get them. I mean, yeah, that justice. We need justice. When no one takes out Morgan without and he did. Clint Eastwood went in there and just like that one scene where he goes, "Who owns this place?" or to the bartender, he goes, "I do," or "Who owns this?" and he goes, "I own this establishment," or something. And I don't know if that's the exact words, but he just doesn't say a word. He just takes a shotgun and blows him away. And I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, it's weird how they put perspective on things.
Well, I know we can't handle things like that today, but there is a sense of, I bet, that kind of stuff works, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
Well, the thing with him, the reason why his character was so interesting too is because right before, I mean, his wife passed away and she taught him how to be a good Christian and whatnot. So he spent the rest of his life trying to repenting for all of his sins is what was pretty much the goal. And so like this whole little like charade he was doing with Morgan Freeman was kind of almost like I need a little escape from the kids and whatnot. And I feel like I need some money. I need to figure this out. And then he has a little bit more of a moral kind of character than he used to, and that's when you see throughout the whole movie. He's like, yeah, I've raped women and stuff, and he is, like I said, I get what you're saying. Gene Hackman is the bad guy of the movie, but technically it's Clint Eastwood. But the idea of redemption is so powerful that it's like, no, I mean, you've learned to err your ways, and now you are hurting someone that deserves to be hurt.
yeah. I mean, but you could even in that role, he was a caring guy. I mean, just like that kid they had ride with him. He told him, "You don't want it." That when that kid shot that guy, and he'd been telling these guys, "Oh, I've shot." He wanted to come off as like a gunfighter, experienced gunfighter, and I think they knew different. And then he goes, then in the end, when he did shoot that guy, he felt weird about it, and Clint Eastwood, and he gave him the gun. He said, "I don't want any part of this." And Clint Eastwood gave him a little speech like, "Yeah, you don't. I mean, you don't want to live. You don't want to be me." And then like the women he went It started out as a business deal. I will pay you X amount of dollars to kill these people that messed with these women.
Mm-hmm.
And but you could tell when he was around that one girl, he was a very nice person,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so that's the thing is, no matter what role he plays, you know, you're rooting for him,
Mm-hmm.
and you know that he's in there. He's a good man. But so I don't know. But yeah, that's the draw for me. It just seems like he's got, you know, he's tough. He's a man. And
Mm-hmm.
but yet he's not
He's flawed.
full. And he's still just a regular human being that's looking for the same thing we are too. But I mean, you know, you sort of sometimes you think, oh my gosh, I get it, and I don't know. But you know, I know a lot of it's my generation, but yeah, he's one of my few heroes. I mean, and I like everything he does. Things that don't get really good ratings, you know, and the critics get a hold of it, you know, and as they do. I get it. I mean, I see what he's trying to do, and I think every actor tries to get out that comfort zone, or you know, do something different to show, you know, the world that they don't have just one character and that's it.
Right.
But I like them all. I'm telling you, I've never not finished watching a Clint Eastwood movie.
Oh, and there's roles too, like that he shows a certain vulnerability, like an obvious one that's very very hardcore, and that is like Million Dollar Baby. What he falls in love with with the girl, and then trains her, and then all that stuff happens to her, and he becomes broken, and he starts like talking about, like ending her life for her and whatnot, and even the priest saying you can't do that. That's you'll be God will be upset about that, and it was such a complicated movie, and I've seen it with you even a few times, and it's not necessarily a happy dappy movie. It's like a Rocky movie. Then all of a sudden it just completely turns itself upside down, and this is yet another movie that he is now won for best directing and best picture, because he has certain vulnerabilities, certain character traits that make everyone fascinated. And I'm sure you know this, but almost no director does this. But when he directs his movies, 1, 2, maybe 3 takes, and they're moving on.
Yeah, I heard he puts out a movie faster than. I mean, I think he's just relying on, you know, when you plan something.
It needs to be just
Um,
ready to go.
Yeah, I think it looks like you're reading off a script, and I think he wants, or I don't know, I mean, I don't know, but I think he's wanting you to wing it a little bit.
He wants he likes to. He feels like the cast and crew should not have to sit and wait for something that should have already been accomplished by the actor and whatnot. So usually after one, like someone like Matt Damon and a lot of these actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, have stated, I spent 3 months with this one specific scene that obviously was the most important scene in the whole movie, and then Clint Eastwood said after the first take, we're good, and I'm like, ooh, I want to do that more. I want to try it again. He goes, no, we're good, kid. It's like,
Yeah,
oh. And it just and people are like, I guess he's kind of intimidating in that kind of way, where they're like, oh, well, okay, sorry, of course, whatever you think, and you're thinking like, well, is that the right way of doing it? But then you watch the movie, you're like, oh, well, obviously Clint knows what he's talking about.
well, you know, and I'm sure for a young actor too, can you imagine being like, you're young and you're just getting into the business, and all of a sudden Clint Eastwood stand there as a director, if you know anything about him, it'd be pretty frightening. He's done it all.
What he's achieved already. I mean, what he's achieved. He has 4 Oscars, and people like think, oh, like you said, we've talked about this many years, and I say to all the naysayers, they're morons. He may have this specific, like, oh, I'm a tough guy, and that's my role. But like I said, we stayed in, especially his movies he's directed. Like you said before we even started talking, there's specific vulnerabilities that he puts even in his own character that shows that, I'm not just being this badass tough guy that is immortal. No, I have my things. In Gran Torino, how life and the culture around his block has changed, and then he sees these other people that doing kind of a weird culture, and he's pissed and he's angry at life, and then he finds some kind of wonderfulness from them. Another reason why he's the man.
Gran Torino is a good example because if you don't know him, and that's the thing, if any movie, and here's if you don't know who he is, what he's done, and all that, he's just a guy, and now he's just an old guy. So I mean, there's a lot to watching the movies where you automatically in your mind it's better because you're talking about someone that your favorite actor. So I mean, automatically in your mind, it's already like a great movie. Well, if it wasn't him and it was someone else doing the same acting job, you might think, well, but the thing of it is I don't know, he's just very, you're talking about Gran Torino. I mean, my point is people that don't know him and they watch that movie, right off the bat, they go, well, he's just an old racist. He's just old, bitter, grumpy, racist man. But as you watch the movie, you realize not at all.
Right.
Yes, he's old. I mean, he's, from his age group and him being in the war. And, the reality is older people are, they grew up in a different world. I mean, it's not their fault. I mean, everyone has to learn. We all have to learn.
Well, we've accomplished so much, so it's obvious that from where we've come from, yeah, absolutely. And
in the end, the end of the story that put it all together was this kid that he's calling all kinds of names and all that, and all these racist names. Well, guess who got his Gran Torino?
Yeah, right.
Showed where his heart was, and that kid knew it too, and the girl knew it too, and they invited him over in their home to eat and all that. So no matter, so there was a good example. No matter what he was saying, what he put out there was, I'm not that guy. I'm just like, but that's who he is, and that's what made the movie work too. I mean, it really did.
Absolutely.
So a lot of people say, oh, well, the language and all that, and I thought, watch the whole movie.
Yep.
Watch 10 minutes of it and then turn it off. No, watch the whole movie and then let's talk about it. I think it's a fantastic movie.
Well, it's another thing too. Like I said, his family are all a bunch of losers. They're all very materialistic. They don't give a crap about anything. They're all just don't care about him. And then he meets these people that at first he's just like, oh my gosh, you guys are, you got weird people. I fought people like you in the war. And then he finds out that they're not even from the same place, because the girl tells him, she's like, I'm not even that kind of Asian person. And because he's calling her offensive things and stuff like that. But then you find out, like, he teaches this kid how to kind of become a man. The gang that's also brother is also like destroying their family. So then all Clint sees is a situation, because he falls in love with all these people, and then he sees a situation where he's like, and of course he's dying of tuberculosis. He's coughing up blood throughout the whole movie. And this is the charm of Clint Eastwood. This is something he's so fantastic at. He does the whole movie. It's kind of a slow burn, but it's like a burn like a Shawshank Redemption kind of movie, where the whole time you're on the edge of your seat and you're just watching, and you're just fascinated by every single person in the movie, because he does that. And even movies that he hasn't been in, Dad, like Mystic River is one of the best movies I've ever seen, and that people forget, a lot of people don't even know he directed that movie. So it's just funny that you give him anything. Bridget, was it Madison of Bridges? What do you call it? I don't even know what you call it.
Here, yeah.
Bridges of, what do you say it again?
Was it Bridges of Madison County?
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah, even that, it's a love story, but yet it still works because Clint Eastwood is the man.
Yeah, I mean, just every movie. I can't think of any. Like I said, I appreciate everything, but the ones where, I mean, it started out as the westerns. I mean, that's how we know him.
Sure.
That's how he started, and he keeps doing it. He always throws in Pale Rider. I mean, oh my God.
That was 85 that it came out, and he was a kind of already like there's he was just still every 5-10 years put out 2 or 3 excellent westerns that you're like, wow, okay.
And Hang 'em High, and And these were all really well received movies. Clint Eastwood, I mean, it was fan or not. I mean, in the day, they were top. I mean, they filled up the theaters. I mean, they were. I mean, there was. I don't know about sales and all that kind of stuff, but I know that was a Clint Eastwood movie come out back in my day. You were lined up. You'll see it just like you would a new Star Wars movie. I mean, it was the same kind of deal. But I've never ever been disappointed. I like all of his movies. I
No,
mean,
no, absolutely. And like Solely, another movie he wasn't in, but it's like that was very good. Solely, just about a guy who landed a plane in the Hudson, and showing like not just like what happened, but showing like what like everything that's going on around it, and then how he had to like fight all these idiots to pretty much prove that was the only option, and then what shows, and just the way it's done impeccably, you're just like, oh, well, that's because it's a Clint Eastwood movie.
yeah. I mean, he's done. I think he. I mean, he's done a lot of different, almost every genre, and I mean, wars and cowboys and I don't know. I can't think of a movie, but my favorites. Well, I don't even can't even really say that anymore. I like. I mean, even like his newer one. I know he's even got a newer one coming out, but like the Mule and stuff. I mean, I think it's a great movie. But yeah, going back to. I mean, Outlaw Josie Wells. That's just a normal guy. It could have been me or you, and then that happened, and it was just what a good story. And you're like I said, you're rooting for him, and you know where it's going to go, but he's just a nice guy. But you don't mess with him, and that's his thing. And the thing of it is too about him versus I think most actors, he can back it up too.
Mm-hmm.
He could still easily beat the crap out of me and all my friends. I mean, he's a really tough guy, but I don't know. I just think and I don't, of course, we don't personally, but everything I've always seen, every interview. I mean, 100% of the time, because I get real scared of watching, whether it's music, movies, or whatever, and see an interview with someone. And I've been disappointed so many times, like, here's how I think you are. You seem like a nice guy and you're a great actor. And then all of a sudden someone interviews and I'm thinking, oh my God, really? And then it's hard to watch or listen. And I can remember, I mean, I can give you a lot of examples of things that, made me look at him different. But Clint Eastwood, everything I've seen, I mean, just he's a good role model in acting. I mean, I think his talents and his. Can you imagine how intelligent? To do come up with the music ideas and the story and the movie. And I know most movies are made off of books, but they always change it. Books aren't always exciting, and they don't have music.
Well, you said it perfectly too. That he doesn't just direct and act his movies. He writes them and he composes the music for him, and sometimes he even sings the songs for him.
No, he's like the Paul McCartney of movies. Just can do it. He can do it all, and it's believable. And he's a likable character, no matter what he's doing. I mean, and I know that there was and I think it was just, and keep in mind, I don't know him personally, but I've heard so many people on interviews and stuff, and they get in these roles, whether it's their comedy or they're a comedian, like Jim Carrey or someone, and they want to show people, or it looks like they want to show people, like, no, I can do something different. I can do this too. Mm-hmm. So I really don't think that he wouldn't surprise. I mean, he's done almost every role that maybe not like a superhero movie.
Which is funny. Which is funny because he was offered Superman, but he said it wasn't his style, and he was also offered James Bond, but he said that was only for Sean Connery. So he has been offered the.
But I will say he would have made a great James Bond if he can speak with an English accent.
Yes, and I think it's funny because he said that James Bond is the only person. Sean Connery is the only person to do it. And he says, and he's not British. And I'm thinking, yeah, but Sean Connery wasn't British either.
He was from like Scotland or somewhere,
yeah,
right?
Scottish, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, that tells you like, well, the original OG guy wasn't even what he was claiming to be. So I guess it doesn't necessarily matter if they're British or not. But Clint Eastwood, I think he chose Dirty Harry for more like gritty reasons, and James Bond was a little bit like a little more like I don't know, like less Clint Eastwood.
Whole new subject, James Bond movie. You could do one. That's a whole new
Yeah,
setup.
absolutely. Maybe we can put that in the pile for you and I to do.
Yeah. But back to Clint, I'm telling you, I just, I, I really count on. I mean, every time I hear he's coming out with a new movie, I'm excited. I mean, I
Hmm.
just think he's, I mean, he's in my world. I mean, um, one of the best actors. I mean, of all time. I mean,
Agreed.
sure. And some of the movies. I mean, not that I've ever ridden across the plains in a horse and as a bounty hunter, but some of the movies, he still has that ability to make you relate to him somehow, you know,
Mm.
or you understand what through his mind or something. It just makes it very easy. You know what he's thinking. You know what his intentions are.
Hmm.
Um, and he's a tough. I mean, Pell Rider. I mean, some of the scenes.
There's a lot of things he does in a lot. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's just such a and the story. I mean, that's the thing. His stories. Outlaw Josie Wells wasn't it like a 3 hour? I mean, it was a long movie, but it discussed history, and his little story in all that while all that was going on, and it just I every time any of those come on, I just no matter where it is in the movie, I just sit down and dig in and watch it till the end, and just I'm just really been for me. I mean, it just doesn't get any better.
Yeah. Well, Dad, in closing, Cry Macho is coming out. Actually, by the time this comes out, it'll already be out. So, are you gonna go
So, 17.
tomorrow?
Okay.
Which would be, like I said, 2 weeks or whatever. Whenever I put this out, but yeah, so go. Maybe you should go watch it in theater or something.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be one I'd immediately go in and watch because I'm sure it's going to be excellent. 70 years of acting.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah, I know. Seriously, but before I let you go, I also want to bring up about Clint Eastwood because it's very important to me, and I know it's important to you too because of your dad. He was also in the army for a little bit. He did now. He was a lifeguard, and he didn't actually see any like combat or anything. But that doesn't matter. He's still a veteran, and he's still a hero in my opinion. And yeah, So that I had to mention that.
Story like, he was drafted to go in the Korean War and then he was on a plane that crashed.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I don't know. But
Well, first of all, you have to say when he crashed, he actually had to swim. I think it was 3 miles back to the shore.
2 miles and one story was that he swam and then another one was that they had a raft that was in the boat. I mean in the plane, but
Oh, okay.
um just like the movie Escape from Alcatraz too. That's another good movie.
Which kind
So
of triggered probably Shawshank Redemption, which I will say is the best movie of all time, and that was probably because of him too. Wow, there you have it. Well, cool, Dad. Well, we need to discuss the next topic, but thank you so much for coming on, and I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for watching. But yeah, Dad, thanks. I appreciate it.
oh, no problem. Anytime, Nick.
Yeah, well, I love you, and we'll come up with them very soon. So thanks.
All right, everyone, go out and watch the Clint Eastwood movie. You'll
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
all right.